Welcome back to another episode of the Untitled Football Podcast. Today we have some Week 2 stuff. Week 2 review and reaction, not just Week 2 stuff. Some fantasy takeaways from Week 2. Some overreactions. But let's get right into it right now. We're going to start off with the Thursday night football game. Browns versus the Bengals. The Browns won, covered 6. I didn't think... Wait, no they didn't. Because they only won by 5 after their last second touchdown by the Bengals. So, yeah. The game hit 65 points, so it went over by a lot. I thought it would have been low scoring. But, I mean, then again, I think I made reference to the fact that it might have just been the fact that the Ravens are really, really good. And that's why the Browns look really, really bad. But against the Bengals, they look nice. The Bengals... I mean, they don't have a great defense. I mean, they have some pieces that I like. Like I said, William Jackson, he played a pretty... I mean, he wasn't really that good. You got beat on a double move, pass interference against Odell, then got beat on the other one. But he also had an amazing interception where he, trapped, cross field and went back and got that interception. That was a really good play. So... yeah, but their defense as a whole isn't that good. They looked terrible up front. They got dominated up front. The Browns ran the ball up their throat with Chubb and Hunt and all those guys. So, yeah. Well, yeah. Baker had a bounce-back game. This is the game that I expected the Browns to have. They looked this is the Stefanski game. The Ravens game, they kind of got thrown off their game plan because they got routed. But this is the game that we expected. And even still, I mean, they didn't run enough play. They didn't run as much play action as I expected them to run in Week 1 versus Week 2. This week they ran play action on 41.7% of Baker's dropbacks, which was third in the NFL this week. In Week 1, they ran play action on 21.4% of his dropbacks, which lands him at 21st in the NFL in that category. So they definitely ran more play action. So they ran more play action than they did before in the week previous. The Bengals and Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow continues to impress. I was really impressed by his pocket presence. It looked, maybe in comparison to Baker Mayfield looking like he always wants to run out of the pocket no matter how clean it is or no matter how pressured he is. He always wants to run out of the pocket. For some reason, I will never know. He's just not comfortable in a clean pocket. Joe Burrow looks 20 times more comfortable than Baker Mayfield. But, in general, Joe Burrow's pocket presence is really good, and not just compared to Baker Mayfield. Because Baker Mayfield has potentially, the worst pocket presence in the NFL from any quarterback. He just doesn't have a good feel for it at all. His presence is non-existent. He doesn't have presence in the pocket because he just runs out of the pocket for some reason unknown. Joe Burrow was under pressure at a pretty high amount. Even though if you look at the percentage of dropbacks that he was pressured on, it was only 16th. But if you look at the total dropbacks, if you look at the total pressures, it was 22nd. He was pressured 22 times. He dropped back 68 times, though. Scrambled a bit. And... yeah, he continues to kind of impress. They ran more five-man protections, which I didn't really think they would do. But, they got the ball out really quick on those, so it did protect the O-line. But even still, he took a ton of hits because, even still, he took a ton of hits because the Bengals have a bottom 3 offensive line. So... yeah, the Browns won relatively easily. Yeah, they won pretty easily. Bengals got a touchdown in garbage time. Baker Mayfield looks like he looks good again. When he's outside the pocket, throwing on the move, he looks in rhythm. He looks really good, but maybe he's not the guy you want to maybe he's not the guy you want to deploy like the Bengals deployed Burrow, dropping back, just dropping him straight back and putting it all on him because Baker's pocket presence is so bad that just so much that can go wrong. The Bengals were way more aggressive when it came to going forward on fourth down on their first possession of the game. Oh yeah, Joe Burrow had that dime dropped by AJ Green. AJ Green was ass. But they had that fourth down, not dropped. It was negated, but they had that. It was a fourth down in their first drive, but they went for it on like 4th and 5. Like they were more aggressive on fourth down than they were in week number 1. That's what you like to see. Denzel Ward was pretty good. That's all I gotta say. Nick Chubb definitely surprised me in terms of the amount of carries he got, not in terms of how good he was, because Nick Chubb is always good, but Nick Chubb got way more carries than he typically does. I mean, not typically does. He got more carries than he did in week 1 and got more snaps than he did in week 1. So maybe it was really just a game flow thing of why he didn't. I mean, so maybe it was just more of a game flow and game script thing of why he didn't get as many snaps / carries in week number 1 versus week number 2. I'll probably touch on that later a bit. I'll probably touch on that a bit more later when I talk about the fantasy aspect, the fantasy takeaways from the week. So, yeah, but that's the Browns versus the Bengals. We're gonna get into the next game. Oh boy, oh boy. Dallas Cowboys 40-39 over the Atlanta Falcons in typical tragic Falcons fashion. My God, did the Falcons choke this one? They were up like 20 to like 29-10. That's bad. That's the most Falcons game I've ever seen. They were about to win. They had it in the bag. They just basically let the onside kick get recovered. It was bad. It was bad. Falcons lose. Dak Prescott had a pretty damn good game as they came back, as he had to overcome a ton of fumbles. Zeke fumbled. Tony Pollard fumbled. He fumbled. Dak wasn't bad like the whole game. He was dropping some really good throws. It's just that he had to overcome a lot of trash from the rest of the guys. Like, other than the fumbles, their offense was really good. And then like that manifested itself. Dak was really good. Matt Ryan was less really good, as he had 2 interceptions dropped. That one on the first drive, I think, and the one in the end zone. He still had 4 touchdowns. Russell Gage almost threw a touchdown, but Julio had a stone-handed ass drop, dropping that Russell Gage dime. This game is just, Dak was really good as they came back in heroic fashion, like super heroic fashion. Dak was really good. He only threw 1 touchdown. He got injured too and came back. He only threw 1 touchdown with 3 on the ground, which is also interesting. Dak was pretty good. Dak he threw the ball really. What the hell was that? Like, he threw the ball really well in high pressure situations. Made some really, really good throws. Got blown up. Made some good throws. Like, he was great. He showed damn, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know, but he looked good. He looked good. He was like the only bright spot of the team for like half the game. Everything started to normalize a bit, and they beat the Falcons. In the worst way possible. That's the worst. That's crazy. How did the Falcons lose that game? They had that game. They had that game in the palm of their hand and just lost it. I wouldn't be surprised if Dan Quinn doesn't make it through the season. The special teams coach probably has to be gone tomorrow, right? I don't know what happened on that onside kick. They just let it go. That's crazy. But yeah, that's about all I have to say, man. The Falcons suck. Dak was really good leading the comeback. And yeah, Falcons suck. Let's get on to the next game, though. Green Bay Packers versus the Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions are sort of disappointing me compared to what I thought they would be. even though like that kind of hinged on Matt Stafford being as good as he was last year, which hasn't been the case. But then again, he also hasn't had Kenny Galladay, so yeah. Aaron Rodgers, another pretty solid game. Wasn't as good as he was last week. I mean, last week was spectacular. This week, I mean, he had some of his better throws. Like he has like some of his best throws dropped this week. So yeah, Aaron Jones was great. He ran at like 9.3 per carry, which is crazy. 9.3 per carry, 2 touchdowns. That's, I mean, he was great. He was great. The Lions still dealing with injuries. And Devontae Adams got injured. But yeah, this team was down this team was down with 14-3, and then the Lions offense just stalled. Yeah. The Lions offense just stalled, and they didn't score for the rest of the game, really. The final score was what, like 42-21? Like, they only scored 1 touchdown in like the second, third, and fourth quarter combined. Like, that's not really a good number. Like, I expected this offense to be a bit better than it is. I mean, in fairness, Kenny Galladay is injured, but Matt Stafford just hasn't been playing nearly to the level that he was last year in, like, the 8-game sample size. So, which I always thought was a probability, but I thought he wouldn't fall off of a cliff this damn hard. He just doesn't look that damn good. This team, 20th in EPA per play this past week, and EPA per pass play, they were 25th. So, yeah, Matt Stafford hasn't been that good this year. Moral of the story, he's been blah. Very blah. To even below average / bad. But he doesn't have his number 1 receiver, which, yeah, but whatever. This team is sort of disappointing me, even though they are dealing with a ton of injuries. But, yeah. Aaron Rodgers and the Packers look great right now. They're on fire. So, yeah, if Aaron Rodgers can continue to play at this type of level, they are a super, super dangerous team. A really dangerous team. But, yeah, let's get on to the next game. The depressing Vikings versus the Indianapolis Colts. The Vikings, potentially the worst team in football right now. They look atrocious. Kirk Cousins was god-awful. I mean, Trevor Lawrence right now, that has to be there. Like, that has to be what they... Like, I didn't think the Vikings were going to be good. But they have superseded every expectation. They have superseded, in terms of, like, being bad, every low expectation I had. Like, I thought they were a 7-9 team at very best. So, like... I thought they were a 7-9 team at very best. They are worse than I expected them to. It's not like just them losing. Like, they look terrible in defeat. They've taken a safety in back-to-back weeks. That's unheard of. Right now, they're this past week they were 30th in EPA per play. They were atrocious. 30th in EPA per play. Because the Monday night game hasn't been updated to it yet. They were 13th in EPA per play. And because, like, the way I have to record this podcast, I'm recording this, like, during the day. I record the Monday after the Monday night, but whatever. They were terrible. Their offense is dog shit right now. And they're 30th in EPA per pass play. I mean, their running offense isn't that bad, but they're still 24th. Like, they suck at everything. They suck at everything. They're a terrible offense right now. The Vikings. The Colts, I mean, they looked fine. Like, they're okay. I mean, it's not like you had to do anything that damn strenuous. They fucking, like, the Vikings fucking suck. The Jonathan Taylor had 26 carries. Led the week in carries this past week with 26. He had 18 at halftime, so the volume is definitely there for him to be a top-tier fantasy option. He only had 14 points this week, though, or like 14 points, I think. Yeah, but he had 24 carries this week. 26 carries, which led the week. So yeah, I'll touch on this a bit more when I get to the fantasy takeaway section at the end. I mean, Phillip Rivers was okay. I mean, it's not like you have to do that much to beat the shitty secondary. I mean, he was fine. Rivers was fine. He was okay. The Vikings are terrible. They have to they're deep in the running for Trevor Lawrence. Like they might be leading the damn race. Cause like if you ask me, I think my teams that are number one overall pick candidates are different than most because I think Washington is there, even though they beat the Eagles. But it turns out maybe the Eagles are there too, because Carson Wentz is playing like he's been terrible. I'll touch on that later though. But yeah, like the teams are like okay, I'll go through this pretty quickly. The teams I think are in the race for the number one overall pick: Jets, Vikings, Washington, and damn, who was it? Let me look. It was Jets, Washington, Vikings. I mean, Philly's been terrible, so they're like the Vikings are bad. That's the moral of the story. The Vikings are terrible. The Vikings are a terrible football team. Oh yeah, the Giants are in the running for the number one overall pick. The Trevor Lawrence sweepstakes. The race for Trevor is something serious, man. Because there's a couple teams like I think the Vikings and the Jets are neck and neck right now. Trevor Lawrence might be wearing purple, and I said that he might go to the Vikings like a couple months ago, like 6 months, like a half a year ago, because I know it was pre-pandemic. I was in like a group chat. People was like, okay, right, what team is Trevor Lawrence gonna go to? And I was like, the Vikings. The Vikings are god awful. End of the story. Let's go to the next game, though. I'm done talking about the Vikings in their pit of sadness. They're terrible. Let's go on to the next game, though. Bills versus Dolphins. The Bills, 31-28 win over the Miami Dolphins. In Miami, this game was like power outage or something. The coverage of the game stopped at some point, and then it was a lightning delay. This game was weird. 31-28. Miami only lost by 3. When the Bills came in as 5.5-point favorite, Josh Allen had probably the best game of his career. He was pretty good. Still got away with a little bit of stuff, though. Had a dropped interception and a fumble that was negated. So, yeah, Stephon Diggs looks great. But Josh Allen, this is definitely Josh Allen's best game of his career. Josh Allen was pretty good. And he had in this game probably one of the most Josh Allen sequences ever. Where he made this, I think it was in the fourth quarter, where he like rolled out on the move. Nice throw to the sideline. Great throw. Tight coverage. Perfect ball placement. Then the next play, he drops back, throws it wildly overthrows a deep ball. That's almost that ends up as a dropped interception. And then the next play, a deep ball to John Brown for the touchdown, and for a touchdown, in like sequential order. Those plays happen back to back to back. And that's the most Josh Allen shit ever. Such a confusing quarterback. And even that deep ball to John Brown was pretty undercooked. And arguably could have been intercepted as it was left almost in the arms of the defender. But John Brown was so wide open that it didn't really matter. Josh Allen on the season is 5th in adjusted deep ball completion percentage. Well, yeah, because Tannehill only has 2 attempts. So if Tannehill gets filtered out, and he's 5th in adjusted deep ball completion percentage, which is far from what I expected him to be, and far from what he's been normally. Like, I didn't expect him to be as bad as he was last year. I also didn't expect him to be, like, good either. Because it's not like he's just exceeded being terrible, but he's also actually pretty good. So, yeah, the Bills also lead the NFL in EPA per pass play. which is also something that's really shocking. The Bills have been playing pretty well on offense, and their defense has been less good from last year. But yeah, the Bills' offense is Stephon Diggs has really made a huge difference. Stephon Diggs had more receiving yards than the entirety of the Minnesota Vikings passing offense. So this goes to show you how depressing the Vikings are. The Bills could be a pretty big problem. Like, their defense hasn't performed well this season, but they do have the pieces and the coach in place to do damage. Like, this could be the team that I was referring to when I said that whatever team that's not the Ravens or the Chiefs, that's whatever team that, if there's a team to make it out that's not the Ravens or the Chiefs, they need a lot of things to go right. And it seems like they could have a lot of things to go right. They have a defense capable of some big performances. I mean, they have an offense that's capable of some chunk plays down that Josh Allen has proven he could actually complete a pass that travels 20-plus yards in the air, which he hadn't up to this point. And even still, it's a low sample size, but he's looked good, though. So they have an offense that's the potential to create some chunk plays, and a defense that could put some good games together. But, so yeah, this could be the team where they get the things to go right, and they can. I don't know. I don't know. I actually don't trust Josh Allen in a high pressure situation against a good team. So, yeah. But yeah, Miami was Ryan Fitzpatrick was like way better than he was last week. Fitzpatrick was terrible against New England. He was terrible against New England. He was pretty decent against Buffalo. And like I said, if he was pretty decent against Buffalo, he'd keep the game tight, and he was. Byron Jones got injured, though. I mean, that kind of changed the course of the game. I mean, like, Josh Allen's looked good, though. Josh Allen's looked good against the worst team in the NFL and a banged-up Dolphins defense. Like, I am pretty high on the Dolphins group of, like, secondary players, but, I mean, when they come in with injuries, everybody got injured this week, but when they come in with injuries, well, they didn't come in with injuries, but Byron Jones only played 4 snaps, so, yeah. The Bills have a bigger test next week. A bigger test next week against the Los Angeles Rams. Now, never mind. I'll get into that in the next podcast. So, yeah. Dolphins, Bills. The Bills look pretty good right now. Let's get on to the next game. I'm not going to talk too much about this. I might end up talking a lot about this. Jets versus 49ers. The 49ers beat the Jets 31-13. They were +7. So yeah, they covered that with ease. I mean, they were -7. They covered that with ease. They're bad. The Jets are. The Jets are probably the worst team in the NFL right now. Trevor Lawrence looks like he's going to be wearing green or purple, but both of those teams. Jimmy Garoppolo got injured, though. Raheem Mostert got injured. Nick Bosa got injured. I think Nick Bosa tore his ACL. Tevin Coleman got injured. I mean, Deebo Samuel was injured coming in. George Kittle was injured coming in. And they still ransacked the New York Jets. That's unacceptable. This 49ers team came in banged up, lost their quarterback, and still, this team got murdered. They gave up like a 3rd and 31 on a run play. The Jets suck. They're terrible. The Jets are bad. 49ers, on the other hand, had a ton of injuries, still came in, did what they were expected to do. Jordan Reed looked statistically like Jordan Reed of old, but he was back in Washington. He was a top-tier tight end. The Jets just suck. They got absolutely slaughtered by a 49ers team that came in with all their with injuries. Then all their guys basically got hurt in the game. The 49ers though, ton of injuries. The Jets suck. The 49ers look good on the ground. Jimmy Garoppolo actually played a good game passing too. Jimmy Garoppolo has bounced back heavily from his game in week 1 where he was pretty bad. So, yeah, Sam Darnold made a great throw. He shed a sack on the run, crossbody Mahomes-esque throw. Sam Darnold can make every throw, but it doesn't matter when you have no receivers. So the Jets just suck. They have to be the front runner for the number 1 overall pick. They have to be. And the 49ers should low-key consider a little bit of a tank job for themselves. With all their guys injured, I mean, who they play next week? With all their guys injured, they play the Giants. They don't have their quarterback, though. They're starting Nick Mullins, I think. So, that's still potentially a winnable game, but not really. You could really tank. You could really tank. If you're the 49ers, you could really stealth tank with an injured quarterback again. But this time you'd be replacing him because you get a much better quarterback in Jimmy Garoppolo and Trevor Lawrence. And Trevor Lawrence with Kyle Shanahan is almost guaranteed to be a success in the NFL. There's almost no bust potential when you have Kyle Shanahan coaching Trevor Lawrence. But, yeah, unless there's injuries or something, but whatever. Let's go on to the next game with the Los Angeles Rams versus the Philadelphia Eagles. Right now, as it stands, Carson Wentz is potentially the worst starting quarterback in the NFL this season. It's a low sample size still. Everything is a low sample until you get to week 17. And it gets a low sample. He's looked terrible. Bad. Carson Wentz has been terrible. He's been an awful quarterback. The Rams and Jared Goff looked good again. They won again. I thought the Eagles would have a bit of a bounce back game. I guess that's not something that's coming ever. Maybe Jared Goff play action on 56% of his dropbacks. That is actually insane. Over half of his dropbacks are on play action. Jared Goff is getting his hand held through this season. Sean McVay looks like he might be back at peak Sean McVay form in terms of just being an offensive mastermind and scheming this production. Because Jared Goff is the same guy. He's the same Jared Goff, but he's holding Jared Goff's hands. Holding Jared Goff's hand. All the pre-snap motion, play action. Jared Goff is 12% above anybody else in terms of percentage of dropbacks that are on play action. That's insane. That's crazy. And then, never mind. But he has one of the lowest ADOTs in the NFL too right now. So he really is Sean McVay is protecting the hell out of Jared Goff. Jared Goff has been an okay quarterback. Jared Goff has the 5th lowest ADOT in the NFL. Interestingly, Patrick Mahomes has the 4th lowest ADOT, but whatever. Average depth of target, that is. Jared Goff has been getting his hand held through the season. Sean McVay has helped this guy out majorly. He's getting the production out of a quarterback that you probably shouldn't be getting this much production out of. So, yeah, again, back to Philly. They're terrible. They're god-awful. They're a bad team. They look terrible on both sides of the ball. They can't cover a soul right now. They look bad. They can't cover a soul right now. And their linebackers are dog shit. Tyler Higbee had 3 TDs on them because their linebackers can't cover anybody. Their cornerbacks were bad. Like Darius Slay, well, Darius Slay wasn't that bad. He only allowed 2 catches for 18 yards on 4 targets. So I mean, he wasn't really that bad. Uh, yeah, they're a bad team. They suck. They look bad. Jared Goff had a good game though, but again, the Eagles might be a sneaky team to be picking number one. They're terrible. They look terrible. Like, I mean, they put up a bit of a fight in the second half, though, but overall, they looked like shit. Anyway, let's get on to the Denver Broncos versus the Pittsburgh Steelers, where Jeff Driscoll had to come in for an injured Drew Lock. Drew Lock, in like the first couple minutes of the game, something happened to his shoulder. He's gone for like 6 weeks, maybe, I heard. That's a lot. And Cortland Sutton tore his ACL or something like that. There was a ton of injuries this week. There's a ton of injuries this week. And some of them, like, you can't really just chalk it up to the lack of preseason. Like, I don't think lack of preseason makes you more likely to tear your ACL, but I'm also not an expert on that, so yeah. The Broncos were not... They lost their starting quarterback. Jeff Driscoll made some throws though. Like Jeff Driscoll had made a throw to Cortland Sutton down the field. That was pretty nice. His touchdown pass was pretty nice. He also had some pretty bad interception. But I mean, like he overall wasn't good. So yeah, he overall just wasn't good. But they kept it close. They kept it close near the end of the game. The Steelers still pulled away. Big Ben had a pretty bad interception where he just kind of like tossed it to Justin Simmons, like softly tossed it to Justin Simmons too. It's kind of just lobbed it up to him. But yeah, the Broncos are gonna be stuck with Jeff Driscoll, and they had Cortland Sutton injured. They were 25th in EPA per play today. I say that because I want to compare where their EPAs landed from Drew Lock led offense and Jeff Driscoll led offense. I think they were 32nd when they were led by Drew Lock. Oh no, they were 25th. So like from an EPA standpoint, they're the same offense they were with Drew Lock than with Jeff Driscoll. But Jeff Driscoll had like a dropped interception, had a really bad interception. Yeah, they're not good. They're in bad hands right now. Jeff Driscoll's not good. Big Ben, on the other hand, though, I mean, he was okay, I guess. I don't know. He was kind of bad, actually. Maybe he wasn't that good. He wasn't that good. He wasn't that good this week. He made a nice throw to Deontay Johnson outside the pocket, which was left behind Deontay Johnson actually, but way to adjust from Deontay Johnson. I'll talk about him later on in the fantasy takeaways of the week. But yeah, the Steelers won as expected. Probably should have won by more. Like, they let that team creep back into the game. So yeah, let's get on to Tampa Bay versus the Carolina Panthers. Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers continue to be riddled by drops. He had two passes in the end zone dropped, and one that could have turned into a touchdown also dropped. Like, looking at Brady's stats on the year, his perception is way lower than the way he's actually playing, because his stats are much worse than he's actually playing. 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. That doesn't look good, but I mean, one of the interception against the Saints was a miscue, and he had 3 touchdowns dropped this week, which would really change. Like, if those were on the stat sheet, that would really change the perception of Tom Brady this year. But they're not. And people are gonna continue to think that the Bucs aren't good with Tom Brady. So actually, I mean, I don't know. I think people probably know that they're pretty good now. I don't know though. Teddy Bridgewater and his Panthers. I mean, they fought. It's not like they laid down. Like, they fought the game. They fought this game. They fought this game. Yeah, they fought hard this game. They didn't lay down. They didn't give up. But at the end of the day, they're just not really that good of a team. And I thought they would be better than they are. But I don't know how much better I thought they'd be. They played some pretty close. Like they played the Bucks pretty close today until Leonard Fournette came shrieking down the field for a pretty long touchdown. Leonard Fournette looks a bit better than he did in a different situation, though he's still not really good. Let's get a larger sample size of that because he's only played. He has like 10 carries, so yeah. Leonard Fournette is whatever. Bucks defense continues to look pretty good. They're like second in terms of EPA allowed. They're like the second best defense in terms of EPA allowed. So, like EPA per play allowed, like the second best defense in the NFL. Their offense, from an EPA standpoint, will probably have to catch up, but they're losing a lot of value and points and yards due to drops. So, and they had Chris Godwin out this game too, and they had an injured Mike Evans in week 1. So, this Bucks team is fine. They look a bit better than I expected them to look coming into the season. I thought they'd struggle a bit more. It's really just the drop issues that are tanking them from like a points and yards standpoint. They probably should have had 20 points in each game they played this year. But Tom Brady's been playing pretty well himself. Christian McCaffrey is injured. That sucks for the Panthers and Panthers fans and most fantasy players because he's like 100% owned. It sucks for that. He's probably the best fantasy back in the NFL, but tell me if I'm crazy or not. Does not having Christian McCaffrey make their offense a tad bit more efficient? Like, will they call more efficient plays? Like, will they not give the ball to Christian McCaffrey in the backfield? Like, will they not target Christian McCaffrey like 100 times in the backfield? Well, target the running back 100 times in the backfield and target their receivers a bit more, or I don't know. Because, like I said in the NFC South preview video, giving your running back 100 targets in the backfield isn't really an efficient strategy for running an efficient offense. So, if those targets are going to receivers now, they might be a tad bit more efficient offensively. As it stands right now, they are 23rd in EPA. Oh, that's on defense. Hold on. They are. My Wi-Fi is fucked up right now. It's moving real slow. They are 23rd in EPA per play. So yeah, they are 23rd on offense in EPA per play. And last year they were about the same place. So with Kyle Allen at quarterback. But the Panthers are not a great team. But they're probably better than a lot of the teams they're lumped into in that number 1 overall pick conversation. Like, I think they're I think they're better than the Jets. I think they're better than the Vikings. But, and they do play, they'll play the Vikings this year. But, yeah, the Buccaneers continue to move on. And Brady's stats continue to be much worse than he's actually playing. And now we have Jacksonville versus Tennessee. The Jaguars and Minshew will never die. They won't die. Gardner Minshew is here to stay. I didn't like that. I don't know. He's here to stay. Because they won't have the number 1 overall pick if he keeps playing like this. He's making throws. It's not like he's just checking down every play. He's making throws like down the field into some pretty tight windows. Like, he looks good. He looks good right now. Like, he actually looks good. So this team probably doesn't get the number 1 overall pick. Like I said, they probably wouldn't. The Titans continue to run Derrick Henry into the ground, though he's playing awfully right now. He had 25 carries for 3.4 yards per attempt. That's not good. Like, they need to lay off of the Henry. They need to really lay off of the Derrick Henry. But Ryan Tannehill, on the other hand, looks like he's brought back the hyper efficiency that he had from last year. Only threw the ball 24 times, 4 touchdowns on the day, which is a 6% touchdown percentage. So he was pretty efficient. He was efficient. He looks like, well, from an efficiency standpoint, he's back to what he was last year. And I think he leads all quarterbacks in completion percentage over expectation and EPA per play. So this is the Tannehill from last year again, basically. And yeah, the efficiency is back. He made some really good throws in some tight windows. He made some good throws in week 1 too. It's just like if they just stopped running the damn ball as much as they do, they'd be because they're 2-0, but and also I don't really blame them for trying to run the ball. Like I thought Derrick Henry would see more success, but apparently that was false. He still didn't. He still wasn't good against the Jaguars, who have like probably the worst defensive front in the league potentially. He just still didn't look good. Just lay off the damn Henry. I want to see what he did off play action. Ryan Tannehill, that is. Ryan Tannehill second in play action pass percentage. And I mean, he was good. They ran play action a lot, despite the fact that their run game wasn't working. Because play action, you don't need to have a run game that really works. You just need to. Play action just works. Like, you don't need to have an efficient run game. Play action just works. So, Tannehill, second highest percentage of play action passes this season. I mean, this past week at least. So, yeah. Tannehill looks like he's good again. Derrick Henry sucks. I mean, I say he sucks, but Derrick Henry off to a really slow start. People are really game planning to stop him. Like, he's not getting anything, really. Garner Minshew, I mean, he threw 2 interceptions. One of them was a pretty unlucky, like, bat at the line, or, like, pop up at the line of scrimmage type thing. So, yeah, but Garner Minshew Minshew Mania is running wild. Garner Minshew he's tank proof. He's a tank proof quarterback. He's not a quarterback that's ever gonna zero you out. Though he might not be good enough to send you to the playoffs, but he's not gonna zero you out, which is probably what you don't want. Like if they wanted to tank, they'd probably be benching Minshew because that'd be your only damn shot. So yeah, but let's get into the last 1:00 game, which is the Giants versus the Bears. The Giants versus the Bears, 17-13, 17-13, and this wasn't this game really ended off really weird. Like the Giants punted. No, they kicked a field goal with on a 4th and short with half of a quarter, fourth quarter left. It was some really questionable in-game decision making from the Giants, which led to them losing to Mitch Trubisky. Mitch Trubisky and his Bears are 2-0. Mitch Trubisky, I mean, he played better this week than he did last week, but because last week he was pretty bad, but this week he was a bit better. I don't know how they keep winning. These games. Mitch Trubisky, 23rd in adjusted completion percentage this week. I mean, last week he was 57% adjusted completion percent. He was bad last week, and he was a bit better this week, even though his touchdown throw was a bit lucky. Darnell Mooney, he threw that at the defender. Darnell Mooney had to maneuver his way around the cornerback and then sky up to get that ball. That was a good play by Mooney. Not so good of a play by Trubisky. And then the play that that didn't really even put the game on ice, but could have, was a pop-up whatever, and then the lineman caught the ball. What the hell happened there? And then Daniel Jones, I said I was gonna go with a better quarterback beating the Bears. I mean, Daniel Jones looked a bit like Daniel Jones of old. Had a fumble. threw a couple passes to defenders. One of which was intercepted. He was the old Daniel Jones. Like, he wasn't the Daniel Jones we saw in week 1 that was like making some tough throws under pressure and looking pretty like a competent quarterback. He didn't look the same this week. That game-winning drive was some I don't even know what to say there. I don't know what to say there, but it was a much worse game from Daniel Jones overall this game than it was in game number 1. So yeah, New York is bad. I still think they have. James Bradbury had a pretty good game, but other than him, like, New York has a pretty bad secondary. Like, I thought it was the worst group in the league. Maybe I over exaggerated that. Maybe it's not the worst group in the league, but it's bottom 5 because Bradbury's actually playing pretty well. 6 targets, 1 reception allowed for 14 yards, 3 pass breakups and an INT. I mean, Bradbury was pretty good. So, other than him, their secondary is still dog shit, but yeah, they still have probably the worst group in the NFL. And they have Logan Ryan playing at safety, which is interesting in itself. I mean, he's been okay. At best, he's been okay. So, yeah, this Giants team is depressing. They're bad. Well, not nearly as depressing as the Vikings. They're bad though. They're not good. So, yeah, let's go to the 4:00 slate off. Washington versus Arizona. This game was not in question once, I'd say. Washington played trash. Washington was terrible. Washington is terrible. Like, Washington is a sneaky team that had the number 1 pick this year. Even though they won a game, I still don't. I mean, the Eagles might be worse than them, actually. I don't know. Washington sucks. They have the worst offense in the NFL, probably. Well, from an EPA standpoint, they don't have the worst offense in the NFL, but that's because Dwayne Haskins also limits damage from a turnover standpoint, but they just don't move the damn football at all. So, like, when you look at some metrics like EPA per play, they're going to show up much higher than they probably should. And those stats, because, I mean, Dwayne Haskins sort of limits the damage from a turnover standpoint. He doesn't turn the ball over that much, but damn, we don't move the football ever. We suck. Washington has a bottom tier offensive line. Sure, Scherf went down too. Only impact player worth a damn on this offense is Terry McLaurin. He had 100 yards, and Dwayne Haskins had 150 yards total at one point in this game. Like, if you throw the ball to Terry McLaurin every damn play, they're way better off than trying to get anybody else involved. So, yeah, right now they're 30th overall in EPA per pass play, and then they are 27th overall in total EPA because this past week they had the number 2 rushing offense in terms of EPA on rushing plays. So they are. Washington is a bad football team. Washington is a terrible football team. Their defense was pretty good in week 1. Like, they have a pretty good pass rush, but everything else sucks. Like, they can't cover a soul. I don't know if there was any pass that Kyler Murray threw that was even slightly covered, except for that Landon interception. That Landon Collins interception was a pretty good play, where he came down from his quarters assignment, and then came down and got the pick. I mean, that was a pretty nice play by Landon Collins. I mean, other than that one play, though, the defense was terrible. The defense is terrible. Like, we have a good pass rush, but if we can't cover anybody, you're never going to be a good defense. And that manifested itself today when we were a bad coverage unit. So, yeah, We're a bad coverage unit. We're actually terrible. So, yeah, we still pressured the quarterback at the 11th highest rate, but Kyler Murray also had a. I mean, there was a ton of screens, of course, because this is what that's what that offense is, a ton of screens. But the Cardinals don't even play that well every game. Like, Kyler Murray is not even passing the ball well. He's running the ball way better than he's throwing it right now. Like, way better than he's throwing it. Like, this Cardinals offense is screen, 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 maybe a couple explosive plays sprinkled in, and Kyler Murray's going to run. Like, this offense is weird. They're only, like, 17th in EPA per play. Like, this team is kind of overrated, but whatever. They look pretty solid. Shit. I mean, of course they're going to look solid. I mean, Washington sucks on defense. Like, what were we supposed to think? Shit, yeah, that's Washington. Let's go to the next game, Baltimore versus Houston. The Texans have been a bit disappointing relative to what I expected them to be with someone as good as Deshaun Watson playing quarterback, but I mean, then again, these were games I expected them to lose, but it's more about the way they're losing rather than them just losing. Like, they're really not putting up a fight in these games. They're getting blown out. I mean, their defense looks terrible. I never expected their defense to be good. I expected their offense to be better than it is, though. I mean, Deshaun Watson, I mean, he hasn't sucked this year. There's been, like, his supporting cast has let him down big time. And, they've been a bit disappointing compared to what I thought they would be with Deshaun Watson at quarterback. They've kind of let him down a bit. So, I mean, he still made some great throws. He got hit hard. It made a throw down the field, and he had one play that was negated by a penalty. That was actually pretty good ball placement or something, or like a penalty or something. But it was pretty good ball placement on that throw when he was on the move and took another hit. This offensive line is dog shit. Speaking of taking hits, this offensive line sucks. Like, this offensive line is terrible. Deshaun Watson was pressured at the 6th highest rate this past Sunday. Like, this offensive line is terrible. It's bottoms of the league right now. And it looked like they were taking improvements over the last couple of years. Over the last couple of, like this past season. It looked like they took a step up. That might not have happened. I mean, Deshaun Watson, there's not much in the way of help going on. Now, it doesn't get too much easier because they play another tough Steelers defense. In a game that they could lose that I expected them to win. Now, maybe this is where we see a turn, maybe a click. The schedule does get easier after this game, though. So, like, they do get to play the Vikings, who are god-awful. They do get to play the Bengals, who are a winnable game. And, yeah, so the schedule does get much easier from this point. This is probably the last really tough defense they're going to play this season. Well, probably not the last tough defense they're going to play this season, but probably the last one they're going to play in a little bit. They play the Vikings, the Jaguars, the Titans, the Packers, the Jaguars, the Browns. They play the Patriots, who have a pretty tough defense. The Colts, who really can't cover that well. The Colts again, the Bengals. This is probably the last really tough defense they're going to play all year. So it is going to get easier for the Houston Texans here after this week. So they could start off 0-3 and then turn around and have a quick turnaround because they have played the two best teams in the NFL in weeks 1 and 2. So these weren't really games I expected them to win. Now, against the Steelers, I expect them to look a bit better than they have, but the Steelers also have like a top 5 defense in the NFL. So yeah, that might not happen either. Deshaun Watson is 11th, and this team is like, the EPA per play on offense is like 30th, I think. Like 29th. Like, they haven't been that good on offense. Like, Deshaun Watson's has been worse than I expected him to be. Like, they're still not going downfield as much as I would want him to. We only threw the ball 20 down the field 3 times this game. He only attempted 3 deep balls this past game, which isn't what he like. I mean, then again, the offensive line is terrible, so it's playing like the offensive line is playing badly, so it doesn't make sense to just kind of expose them with longer developing plays, but that's how you're going to maximize the skill sets you have at receiver, though. So, yeah, the Ravens, on the other hand, just took care of business, just dealt the Texans. The game was never really in question, ever. Lamar Jackson, he didn't even play all that well. Threw the ball, dropped back 32 times, threw the ball 24 times. Lamar Jackson, I think he leads the NFL in time to throw. No, Baker Mayfield was at 3.27 this past week. But overall in the season, Lamar Jackson is still second, 2.97. As it looked like he was dancing around like a ton in the damn pocket this week. Like he was like this was like the game that people think Lamar Jackson is, because normally he's more of a composed pocket passer. This was the game where he decided to run around in circles and tried to juke guys out in the pocket, and then he threw those like that was one of the most exciting incompletions of all time, where he was like running around in circles, tried to like juke a guy and like toss it in. One of the most exciting incompletions of all time. But yeah, they ran the ball pretty well for like the first time since last season, because they didn't run the ball well against Cleveland. But yeah, Gus Edwards led the team in yards, 73 yards. Lamar Jackson, 54 yards. They ran the ball 37 times for 230 yards, 6.2 per attempt. They ran the ball really well this game. But Lamar Jackson wasn't even that good, and he was, and they still won the game. This Ravens team is really dangerous, really good. Then they're gonna play another really good team in the Kansas City Chiefs next week on Monday Night Football. That's gonna be a really good game. They're like polar opposites of each other. I'll get into that game on the preview a bit later, and a nice little segue. We'll get to the Chiefs game right now against the Los Angeles Chargers in a game that was like oddly pretty close with Justin Herbert playing. Justin Herbert really surprised me this game. Like, he was much better than I thought he would be, especially in his first start with like really short notice. But on the flip side, the Chiefs didn't know till he fucking trotted his ass out there. So the Chiefs didn't know the Chiefs knew later than he did, and they prepared for Tyrod Taylor, who is stylistically a much different quarterback. Much more conservative, doesn't throw the ball down the field as much as Justin Herbert will. And, the Chiefs' defense also just isn't that good personnel-wise, so... Yeah, but Justin Herbert he had the highest percentage of uncatchable throws. Still also dropped some dimes in there. Like, that throw to Keenan Allen was really good. Overall, he was okay. He wasn't, overall, he wasn't that good, but... He still made some really good throws that would be encouraging for some Chargers fans. He still also threw maybe one of the worst picks you'll ever see, like the cross-body. He also could have ran for a first down, but decided to throw the ball cross-body into double coverage. That's one of the worst picks you'll ever see. That's terrible. That's awful. That's one of the worst picks you'll ever see. But other than that, and some missed throws, he made some really good throws too. He definitely was better than I expected him to be coming into the NFL. I was definitely much lower on him coming into the draft. I still think he was overdrafted. We don't have much of a sample size of him though. Only 1 week in which he wasn't even that good. So, and it seems like Anthony Lynn is still going to go with Tyrod Taylor if he's the starter. If he's healthy. So, yeah, you might as well go Herbert, though. See what he has. At this point, he's already showed that he has the potential to make big throws down the field and make plays that Tyrod Taylor hasn't really made. So I don't know why you would try Tyrod back out there after what Herbert showed that he could do this week. But then again, like Herbert, 6 for 2 on deep ball pass, on deep throws, 33% completion percentage on deep throws. I mean, the 2 that he hit were really good though. And then he also hit one in double coverage with Tidler Sneed and I forgot who the other guy there was, but yeah. Tyrann Mathieu made a really good play this game. Tyrann Mathieu's a great player, but the Chiefs' offense did not look nearly as good as they normally do, though. They didn't look nearly as good as they normally do. Mahomes didn't look like Mahomes. Mahomes must have called out sick. Mahomes didn't look good. Mahomes didn't look that good this week. I mean, the offensive line was god awful, though. As for, Mitchell Schwartz got eaten alive. Eric Fisher got eaten alive. Their tackles got eaten alive. Mitchell Schwartz played the worst game of his career against the Chargers. And then still again, Mahomes made probably the best throw you'll ever see. Or one of the best throws you'll ever see on the move. Absolutely perfect ball placement. Tyreek Hill somersaults into the end zone for a touchdown, which then sets up the game-winning drive where Patrick Mahomes on 3rd and 20 scrambles out of the pocket for a first down. Mahomes was super clutch this game. Mahomes also had an interception dropped or negated and dropped on the same play. So yeah, but then again, the Chiefs did get a little bit lucky with the Chargers, playing as if they did not want to win the game at all. They, kicked the field, not kicked the field goal. They punted the ball off to Mahomes after basically not attempting to get a first down. And then on 4th and 1, they punted the ball off. That stuff that Anthony Lynn has been historically bad at as a coach and as a head coach. That's what he seriously needs to work on. Giving the ball to Mahomes, the probability of you winning the game shrinks to the size of to the size of a penny. You're not. There's a low. It's like giving the ball to Tom Brady or giving the ball to giving the ball to the best damn quarterback in the NFL isn't a good idea to win a football game. So, even if you don't get the 4th down. If you punt it off, you're going to lose anyway. So, you might as well fucking try it and go out swinging instead of just lay down and give the game to the Chiefs. They didn't attempt one first pass the line again. They punted the ball on 4th and 1 and just gave the ball to Mahomes and just gave the game away. And they still had a chance to win, but maybe Mahomes was just too damn clutch. He was not. It was a 3rd and short. And then he a 3rd or 4th and short. And then he came in, he took a hit, made sure he got the first down. Mahomes was clutch. This way you don't give the damn ball to Mahomes in overtime when you have a 4th and 1. And then Harrison Butker, ice in his veins, 3 kicks in a row, made all of them, won the game for the Kansas City Chiefs, and the Chiefs are still undefeated. They snuck out of this game. They got pretty lucky this game. They played their worst game and won the game. That's just how damn good. That's how good the Chiefs are. But let's get into the Sunday Night Football game. That was probably the game of the week after watching all the games. That's probably the game of the week, where Cam Newton's New England Patriots went up against eventual MVP Russell Wilson's Seattle Seahawks. Russell Wilson, this wasn't his best game from a throws made standpoint. He still threw 5 touchdowns though, but one of them was really a nothing play in terms of Russell Wilson. It was kind of he just dumped it off to Tyler Lockett and he ran in, and the one to David Moore was kind of not even really that good of a throw. But even still, all that being said, I'm not saying he played bad because he still dropped that dime to Chris Carson when he took a massive hit. Still dropped that throw to DK Metcalf. Russell Wilson, and still had that throw on the first drive where he like stepped up on the move. Like Russell Wilson's insane. Russell Wilson's great. Like right now, he's probably playing like the best quarterback in the NFL. This is his MVP to lose. This is his year to win the MVP. This is Russell Wilson's year to win the MVP. But let me not discredit what Cam Newton did. Cam Newton had a stellar performance. I was skeptical about their passing offense. It was a low sample size. They didn't do it that often, and they were up by a ton. Well, not up by a ton. They actually didn't win that game by that much against the Dolphins. Cam Newton definitely impressed me from a passing standpoint. Cam Newton was actually really good throwing the ball. He made some great throws down the field in tight windows. This was probably the best Cam has ever looked throwing the ball. And he still looked pretty efficient running the ball. Well, he only ran the ball at the goal line, really. But, yeah. This is the best Cam Newton has probably ever looked throwing the ball. Jamal Adams looked bad. Jamal Adams looked terrible. He got cooked. He allowed 127 yards this game into his coverage. Now that's not good. That's not good. That's probably that's like the most yards he's allowed in his entire career. Let me fact check myself on that. It has to be. Yeah, it's the most yards he allowed in his career by a wide margin. I don't think, from what I've seen on a quick glance, looking at how many yards he's allowed in every game in his career, it looks like he's only allowed like over 50 yards like once in his damn career, or twice in his damn career. He looked bad today. He's getting blazed. But Cam Newton looked really good. He made some really good throws into tight windows, and yeah, they almost won the game. Cam Newton did get away with some stuff from a turnovers standpoint. He had an interception dropped and had an interception on literally the same play. The quick out route. Dunbar jumped it twice. Dunbar is good, and the Redskins gave him up for a fifth. Imagine. Anyway, Cam Newton really surprised me. Like, I was skeptical about their passing offense coming into this game, but Cam Newton has definitely proved me wrong. Cam Newton looks great right now, and the Patriots look good. Cam Newton looks way better throwing the ball than I expected him to. I said that probably multiple times at this point, but he really did. He made some good throws down the field in tight windows. I mean, he looked great. Like, he looked phenomenal. So, yeah. And the weapons aren't even good there. Other than Edelman, they don't have a guy that's going to create separation consistently on that roster. Cam Newton still was pretty good with them. Julian Edelman had his career high receiving yards this week. Interestingly, with Cam Newton and not Tom Brady, he had 179 yards. Had 3 drops, though. Dropped the ball 3 times. I mean, Edelman looks like Edelman's probably ran more deep routes in this one game than he has in his whole career playing with Tom Brady. And I mean, I don't know, Cam Newton's looked really good. Cam Newton has looked really good this season. And he might damn near have like 20 rushing touchdowns, because it looks like that goal line QB power, whatever the hell it is, the fullback lead QB power is, not power, but the fullback lead is the most unstoppable play in football. I mean, well, the Seahawks stopped it twice, but other than that, I mean, like, on the goal line, you probably could have knew that play was coming. Like, they probably should have did something different, but then again, it was your best play of the night, basically, so I don't hate it too much. They also ran the fake version of that when the fullback slipped out of the backfield. And I was watching the game with my brother, and I said they should slip the fullback out of the backfield for a touchdown, and they did this, and they did it literally the next play. But yeah, this Pats offense looks really good. It looks really good. Now let's get on to the next game of the video. And we're going to go Raiders versus Saints, the Monday Nighter. Saints versus Raiders, first ever game at Allegiant Stadium. And who would have guessed that Alec Ingle be the first NFL player to score, and the first Raider to score a touchdown in the new stadium? The Vegas Raiders are here. They beat the Saints and a massive upset. I thought this would be a bounce back game for New Orleans. I was wrong. New Orleans looks just as bad as they did against Tampa Bay, and Oakland's secondary is far from as good as Tampa Bay. Oakland doesn't have a great coverage unit, and somehow the Saints managed to look bad against them, which is very, very alarming. The Saints might not be a Super Bowl contender this year if Drew Brees is going to play like this. And you got to wonder, are they going to try Jameis? Like, in my NFC South preview video, I said that Jameis, you might want to give Jameis a try at the end of the season. That's when Brees seems to, like, wane near the end of the season. Now, that's happened much earlier. Did they try Jameis? Like, I was like, should they put Jameis in when they were down, like, 2 scores? Because I know damn well Drew Brees isn't going to be aggressive enough to bring them back in this game. Drew Brees has the lowest ADOT in the NFL right now. The Saints are one of the worst offenses from an EPA standpoint. One of the worst offenses from a success rate standpoint, which is percentage of plays generating positive EPA. They're one of the worst offenses in the NFL right now, really, by almost every metric. They're not playing well on offense. I mean, their defense, they allowed 30 to the Raiders. Derek Carr played relatively well. I mean, it's not like he was lights out. He still got away with some stuff. Tossed the ball up in, like, double coverage that ended up being dropped, I think, or negated, one or the other. Josh Jacobs wasn't nearly as good from a fantasy standpoint. This Raiders O-line hasn't been nearly as good as it was last year. And even from a run blocking standpoint, the Raiders O-line was never good. They're definitely a much better pass blocking unit than they are a run blocking unit. And the Raiders upset the Saints. The Saints look horrible right now. Like Drew Brees, like when I said I said in the week 2 preview podcast last Tuesday last Thursday that Drew Brees, I'm way more concerned about Drew Brees than I am Tom Brady, and Drew Brees' team won. It was just Drew Brees didn't look good. It looked like he couldn't throw a football further than 10 yards, which manifested itself today. As Drew Brees is bad. He looks terrible. Like, his accuracy doesn't even look the same as Drew Brees anymore. Like, his ball placement, his ball location is all over the place. Like, high, low, out to the side. Like, this isn't the same Drew Brees. Drew Brees might have fallen off of a cliff. Drew Brees might have reached his breaking point. I don't know if he has any more left in the tank, Drew Brees. And it's really going to be a detriment to the Saints team. So let's get into the fantasy takeaways from all of this. Because this is a perfect segue to how Alvin Kamara is probably going to emerge as the best fantasy back, which was already a relatively high probability in the off-season. Looking at an outlook into the regular season. It looks like he's on pace for maybe a career high in catches because Drew Brees is targeting him relentlessly because Drew Brees can't throw the ball that far. So Alvin Kamara is really going to become one of the most valuable fantasy options. I think him and Zeke are going to be finish 1 and 2 in terms of running back finishes. Now, I said I was going to talk more about Deontay Johnson here too. Deontay Johnson leads the team in targets. The Steelers, that is, in targets this season, which is good to see for Deontay Johnson fantasy owners like me, but the fantasy points are like kind of flipping back and forth. Like, they had opposite weeks this past week from a fantasy point standpoint, and that's probably going to be frustrating during the season. Now, also, Kamara is definitely on pace to have his best fantasy season. But let me talk about some guys you should probably pick up on the waiver wire. Ryan Tannehill looks like he's repeating the efficiency he had I have him on a couple best balls, and him and Cam Newton on a couple best balls. But like, yeah, Ryan Tannehill's definitely somebody that you want to target on the waiver wire potentially. Now he does probably have some pretty high volatility game to game. So there will be weeks where he's not as good as he is on other weeks where he's lights out. But Tannehill in general is a guy that I think could put up some pretty good points. Jerick McKinnon, he's like the only 49ers running back left. They could be going with a relatively run-heavy attack against the Giants with Jimmy Garoppolo out. So Jerick McKinnon is someone that I targeted heavy, and I might even start him this week because, and on some of my teams, I might even start him this week because they could go to a run-heavy attack with Nick Mullins in the game, and he is their only running back to receive the volume. James Robinson again, Jags running back, still getting most of the carries. Chris Thompson got a catch for a touchdown, so he's not getting the receiving role, but we didn't expect whoever got the 2-down role to get the receiving role because that's Chris Thompson's role. So, yeah. Shit, that might be it. Oh yeah, Jonathan Taylor getting a ton of volume. That's what you want to see. Behind that O-line, the per carry and the points haven't matched up to what they could be yet, but that'll come eventually. And Jonathan Taylor's going to be one of the better fantasy options long term, I think. But Marlon Mack, they still want to play Marlon Mack even if he's there. So yeah, I still wouldn't touch that Bucks backfield. It's still way too crowded. Leonard Fournette had 100 yards this past game, but I don't think he led the team in carries though. Yeah, this is like that backfield's way too crowded for me to touch right now. So yeah, I'm gonna. Oh yeah, you might want to pick up the Panthers running back. Who is it? Like, I don't remember his name, but you probably want to pick up him because he's gonna have to fill the role. They might pass more, which might make them a more efficient team overall in real life. But for fantasy, yeah, if you have DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, you're looking pretty good. But yeah, you really want to look at target share and air yards. Terry McLaurin is in terms of targets, Terry McLaurin is like 6 in the league right now. Terry McLaurin is a guy that I've been targeting. Is a guy that I targeted in almost all my drafts. All my drafts, really. If he wasn't there, it was depression. But Terry McLaurin, as of right now, is... Damn, I can't see his name. He's only 16th in targets. Week 1 wasn't that good, but he had 125 yards this past week. Had a pretty good amount of targets. He should be fine. He should be fine as a fantasy option. Calvin Ridley is 6th in targets in the entirety of the NFL, which is good to see for and Julio's gone. So if you have Calvin Ridley, he's gonna get a massive amount of the targets, and I think he has I don't think he has a higher air yards than Julio, but Russell Gage is definitely a guy that's gonna go off now. But yeah, Calvin Ridley actually has more targets down the field than Julio Jones, so he has a higher ADOT, or generally he has more 20-yard plays. Targets 20 yards down the field than Julio, and he also has more targets than Julio. Granted, Julio did get injured a little bit, but yeah. Those are the fantasy takeaways from week number 1, and this is the podcast from week number 2, and this is the podcast in general for week number 2. You're watching on YouTube because that's the only place that I can post it right now. Like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff, and yeah, I'm out.